Hello there, broadcast community. It is MJ Calloway here with another episode. Actually, we're going into season 2. Even though season 1 was a very short one, 2.5 months as we started mid-October, we are thrilled to be going into season 2 and 2022. There's a lot of twos in there. I am thrilled with our topic today because it's one that I've been doing for the last 10 to 11 years. And with me today, I have my fabulous rock star co-host,
Jim Kunkle. Welcome, MJ and Eve and Lisa. Welcome to the broadcast.
So we have, for our viewers, we have 2 guests today. So Eve is a website designer. So if you have some website issues, she is your person. She's also a podcaster, which makes her a great guest. And then we have Lisa with us, who is a productivity and organizational coach. Perfect for this topic. She's also a podcaster. So we are thrilled to have both of them with us today. So our topic is, can one word change your life? I love this. I love the brainstorming behind it. We're going to dig into the words. So our topic today, we're going to dig into the reason behind choosing your one word. What one word possibly failed for our guest, and what word really made a difference in their life. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. I'm going to ask, before I talk a little bit about my word, I'm going to ask Jim, my co-host here. Jim, when did you start doing the one word of the year?
Well, I would say it's more recently. I've gone through a little bit of a transformation, and that's a word for me, and also reinvention. And it started roughly in 2020. So that's kind of where I'm at with one word. Prior to that, I don't remember ever really sitting down and defining out what one word would sum up my past or my future. But I do understand the concept behind it, and I do appreciate what one word and how powerful it can be.
And Jim, those are perfect words for you because you did do transformation and reinvention from the pandemic forward. So perfect words for you. So now for viewers, if you haven't heard about one word, or if you're wondering what the concept is behind it, choosing one word for the year. So your one word gives you an overarching theme or vision for the year ahead. So Eve, I know you've been doing it for a while. So when did you start?
I started doing it in 2013 for the year 2014. And I think I just got tired of resolutions and failing with resolutions. And simultaneously, I was a couple years into a diagnosis. I got diagnosed with MS in 2009. So there was a couple years of like, whoa, what's going on here? And so I found it very helpful to start thinking about future things and things I could look forward to. And it sort of played very well into this notion of a word of the year instead of a resolution.
Oh, and that makes so much sense because that played an important part for me whenever I had my first cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
So what was that? What was your word that first year?
I kept a list. This is because I'm weird. I kept an Evernote list of every word since then. And so the first one was courage, which I think about. And actually I had this whole thing about New Year's words, and I looked back and I have all the brainstorming words underneath it of words that didn't make the cut kind of thing. And it's very strange just to look at some of them. Some of them are specific. Some of them are very broad. Courage felt sort of a good balance between the two, but it's also hard to sort of say, sure, I was courageous. It's hard to sort of make that a specific actionable thing that you can look back on the previous year and go, yep, did that. But that's where it started.
That's awesome. Now I'm going to skip back to your list in a second, but I want to hop over to Lisa. Lisa, when did you start and what was the reason behind it?
Well, first of all, I found out that Eve and I are so kindred spirits because I have an Evernote list as well. Actually, it's moved to Google Docs now, but mine was actually a bit more of a subtle changeover. And I would say somewhere in that same time zone, about 2012 to 13 or so, I started bringing up words, bringing them into, like, along with the resolutions and things like that. And I started tracking them by 2017. So I have the definitive words that I've used since 2017, and then the approximate words that I had before then. And I could feel that I was setting a different kind of intention. And what I love about it, if I'm not getting too ahead of myself here,
Not
is
at
the
all.
fact that it's allowing us the flexibility that we need. And if 2020 and 2021, for that matter, showed us anything, we need to have that kind of flexibility and fluidity within the year. So a word, you can change and alter that. And I love that it creates what I like to call a filter for all of my choices and my decisions and what I bring into my life.
I love that. That's similar to what I do. And the thing about a word is the word it can be the same word, but it can have a different meaning, whether it is your personal life or your professional life.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that because then you think about the nuances. And of course, I'm like a wordsmith from way back anyhow, an English degree, and I love the nuances of the language. And then this allows you to kind of play with that and be creative about it and allow it to mean what it needs to mean for you, and even change the meaning throughout the year. It can be the same word, but then you're looking at it in a whole different way. And that's my story really for 2020, was that exact thing happened with my word.
I'd have to agree to that, because for me, looking at reinvention and then transformation, I started to apply that in my personal life as much as I was doing in my professional life. And it really started to get me to focus and ground myself of what I'm doing personally and what could I be doing that would be, a transformation, and also that opportunity to reinvent myself. I'm 55 years old. And, I have a limited amount of time left as a professional potentially, but I'm always going to have that personal side that no matter what, my family will continue on. And the same thing with me. So, looking at the long game, exactly, how the words do come into play professionally, but also personally, how they can help shape what my future self will look like. Eve, I saw that. I'm never going to retire.
Good.
I learned from grandparents that lived a long life that if you retire, you have nothing left, unfortunately, but the end comes quick. So stay active and stay attentive to activity that keeps you young and alive. So,
And I'm close to you in age. I'm 52. So for you to say, "Oh, limited amount of time," I refuse to accept that. So we're doing this to our 70s.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So the new word is longevity.
Yes, definitely. And in fact, we had a wellness coach on a couple of weeks ago, Laura Greco, Jim, and she's working on a digital program that is a longevity plan of what you need to be doing in your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s, so that you are living a full quality life in your 80s and 90s. So we'll have to have her back on once she finishes that. And I want to go back to what's great about the word is we're talking about adapting it personally and professionally. We can use that word and ask ourselves questions. If I make this decision, does this stay with my overarching theme? Does it stay with my word of the year? That's what's so great about having a word of the year compared to, and I'm not saying not to have resolutions, though my resolutions I do quarterly, because it's easier to hit 12-week goals than it is a year-long goal. But everything goes back to that word of the year. And when my first word of the year, it was actually a phrase, and it happened in 2010. I was leaving a long-term, or had left a long-term marriage because my safety was jeopardized at the time, and I was starting over with $500. I left with my personal belongings and $500. And I knew that I needed resolutions was not going to work. I needed something else. I needed a theme for my year. And I came up with life is good. So this way, and I had switched jobs. I had gone from a salary position to a commission-based position and an industry I didn't know anything about. However, I every time I would think life is good because, and I used a because after that, life is good because I have an opportunity to make more money in this commissioned only position. Life is good because I'm alive. So it was a phrase that I kept in 2010 and in 2011. And then a writer friend of mine told me about the word of the year. And does anyone know who created the word of the year? Are you familiar with? So this is fascinating. I connected with the founder of oneword365.com last year, and her name is Elise, and she started this in 2009 because resolutions weren't working for her. So when she created her one word, her first word was risk, because she needed to start taking risk. So when a writer friend told me about this, I was like, oh my goodness, I've been doing it, but I've been doing phrases. So I started with that one word. So I've been doing it basically since 2010.
That's very, very cool. And when you mentioned leaving your marriage, I actually realized why I may have started doing this, to be honest, because my ex turned out to come out to me as transgender in 2012, and we decided how we were going to figure out the end of it, and that took a lot. And in 2014, which was the year we were doing all that stuff, that was the courage year. So I think about that. That's when we split and started the process. So maybe I heard that and it connected with me, and that was the reason to do it.
Yes.
There's something to that, in that I see this so much. I saw it in myself and my own story as to, how I became the coach that I am, and then who I coach. It's that, and just so you understand, as a productivity coach, it's not about doing more, it's about doing less. And it's about honoring the bandwidth that we have in our lives. And what you're talking about, and the same thing happened with me, is that when life is running along, shall we say, as smoothly as one might expect, you can go off and have resolutions and create fun planners and do things, that seem, quote, productive, right? But when everything goes off the rails, you need to really, really simplify and bring it down. And by the way, I mean, statistics are backing us up on these resolutions. Listen, if you do resolutions and it works for you, awesome, go for it. But we're all here, right? Because we have a group, we have the t-shirts and a handshake ready to go, right? That we're like, resolutions did not work, and statistics are backing us up. Within a month of everyone making those resolutions, only 25% remain still going. And then by the time you hit the full-on group by the end of the year, I mean, 8% maybe success rate. That's 92% of us left. We need something different that's going to flow with our lives, right?
Right. Absolutely.
We just did a podcast episode about that for the end of the year, and it's me and 3 other people, the other Gen Xers, and the other 2. It was actually 2 of us at the time. They don't do anything. They don't even do a word, because they're like, I'm fed up. This never works. We started looking at the same stats that you saw. We also learned where resolutions came from, which is all the way back in Babylonia.
Oh.
So we were kind of like, Babylonians can it, but but they did it because it was fealty to their gods, and they wanted to do something to please their gods. So when you look at that, it's like, that's not about me. That's about someone else. And so I even took down further on the word, because like you say, you got to do something for you, and it has to be something that you can pivot with, and it's something that you can adjust because life changes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And Lisa, when you were talking about when things are smooth, in 2017, my word was healthy. And what I had realized, because in 2016, I was diagnosed with the first bout of cancer, and I had a 20% chance of surviving over 5 years if chemo didn't work. And chemo had a 50% chance of working. And I knew my lifestyle that I had in 2016, which my word that year was growth.
Mhm.
And my business was at the best it had been since I had started it in 2013. But I also knew that I could not continue that, couldn't continue the lifestyle. I couldn't continue working the way that I was. So that entire year, I had to ask myself, is this a healthy plan for my business? Is this a healthy decision, a financial decision? Is it a healthy decision for me personally? So it does. It makes us hone in because life doesn't always work out. Life tends to throw us knockdowns or face plants or lemons, whatever word you want to use. So by having that word, it helps us to have streamline, as you were saying, being more productive, simplify.
And can we just take a moment to celebrate 5 years for you? Because you said 2017, and that's amazing. So
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It is.
So thank you. So yes. So thank you. I appreciate that. So let's hop into. So I'd like to dig into this because as we're talking about life, it doesn't always go according to plan. So did you have a year that your word of the year did not work?
Yep. 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 Well, I mean, to Lisa's point, maybe there's a way to pivot it, and perhaps I did pivot a little bit, but I've been doing this for a while. Some of them were too broad, and I said, well, we gotta get more specific with them. Then you get more specific, and then you're like, oh, it'd be better if it was broader. 2019 was the year I worked at an agency, and I am a Gen Xer, and I was fired by a millennial, and I still am angry about that.
That's hard for Gen Xers.
It really is. It is. And I built her industry and then she fired me. So that was not good. But somebody I worked with at that time, I'm searching. I actually put out on Facebook and said, I have no idea what my word could be. I just had this terrible year in 2019. What could 2020 be? And she came up with badass, which I loved. And she's like, because you're a badass. And I said, okay, we're going to do badass. 2020 is the year I'm going to make 2020 mine. And then the pandemic hit. So suddenly it's hard to be badass when the world is dying. But, to your point, you find a way to pivot it and find a way to try and make it your own and find a way that, okay, so from a personal perspective, how could I be that badass? Because come March 2020, it's like, oh God, I've made a mistake. I've really made a mistake. Is there a rule? Can I change it at this point?
yes, by the way, yes.
And I didn't know, but I was kind of like, well,
Yeah.
and do I let my friend down because she gave me the word? So suddenly, as the pandemic started to unfold, it's like, well, maybe badass could be the outcome of dealing with that pandemic. So to your point, Lisa, I think it's good to keep in the back of your mind a word that is flexible.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, I have a different story for 2020. I'm happy to share, but I could answer the question first, which is where things didn't go quite right, or the word didn't serve me as I hoped it would. Let me put it to you that way. And in interesting parallel timing, it was my 2019 word, and so there is sort of this. I don't know. It's a nebulous kind of thing where it's like you need it to be broad enough for it to be flexible, but on the other hand, maybe sometimes it can be a little too far. And ironically, the word was beyond.
Oh.
And it was really beautiful to begin with. I kicked off the year with like, oh, isn't this wonderful? It's like, reaching beyond, you hear these phrases, beyond the stars, and then I was like, beyond what? Beyond my mind, because I had a hard time locking it into what that might look like. You know what I mean?
Good point.
So
That would, because even thinking about it, think about it. Beyond what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you have that answer, if you're like, oh, but it applies to this, it's beyond these limitations that I've had, or beyond this, if I had something to link it to, I guess maybe it wasn't somehow wasn't personal enough for me. And so I've learned to ask better questions, which is a huge part of what I do as a coach anyhow. I'm like, I don't have your answers, but I ask really good questions. So I'm doing that to myself now, and I got better at it. But it was a good attempt, and sometimes you have to have a flop so you can be like, I know what to do now.
Okay. Well,
So
go ahead and share your 2020, then we'll go to Jim and he can share his 2020.
Wonderful. Okay, so and thinking, of course, 2020, I was thinking about this in 2019, having just said, "Oh, Beyond didn't work. So what are we doing here?" And I was like, "So what am I doing?" My business was growing, and I was connecting to so many people and collaborating and really stepping into my own. But I knew that I was primarily one-to-one, and I wanted to help more people.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to stretch myself, and my word was reach.
That's a good word.
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's a great one.
Thank you. And it meant those different kinds of things, for me to reach out and connect with people that maybe I hadn't in a while, for me to reach and stretch and challenge myself, for me to reach as many people as possible to help them. Well, this started in a very traditional sense of, hey, I can do workshops and I can do speaking engagements. And I did do those things, but then, March 2020, hello. But
Mm-hmm.
the way that this word allowed me to keep going with it is, okay, now I really need to reach out and help people in a different way. One of my certifications is in stress management. So I really pivoted and focused on that because I knew this is what we're all dealing with. We have global stress. And so how can I help? How can I reach? I would do Zoom presentations for free for different groups. And I found different ways to maneuver and to still do what I intended to do, but for a different purpose. And then I knew I had wanted to start my podcast, and I kept dragging my feet. And then by the spring, the pandemic really brought this out in me, and it was a beautiful gift. I was like, Lisa, come on. This is reach. This is true reach here. Podcast. Hello.
Right.
And so I am happy to say that June 2020, I launched my podcast. Thank you. And by the end of this year, I celebrated 10,000 downloads. So
Wow.
So that was that word, and I'm still holding on to that word, even though I have a new word. I had a new word for this past year, but that reach really it stayed with me, and I just think it's so important. So that's how a word can work for you, even when you're on a roller coaster.
Definitely. That is an awesome example of the one word year.
Yeah. Thanks.
Now, Jim, yours was transformation, and you had an amazing transformation in 2020. Could you share a little bit?
The way I would look at it is, got to make sure I have my mic on when I talk. The way I'd look at it is in 2019 going into 2020 for me was reinvention. So the minute we went into the pandemic, I was a traveler. I traveled across the domestic states here into Latin America, and worked with companies in a lot of different contexts and different industries. And so all of a sudden now I'm home based, doing everything through Zoom and Teams and all these online type of platforms. But in the process, I started a YouTube channel, and then got into live broadcasting. And once I got approved for LinkedIn Live, it just totally immersed myself into LinkedIn Live. And currently I'm in the process of, as we're talking about, a reinvention, but also now into a transformation where, for example, I have about 950 subscribers to my YouTube channel. I'm going to focus on growing that and doubling and tripling that number. But for 2021, with just the build out content that I've been doing over the past year, and it's been 30 episodes, I have over 19,000 unique views from my YouTube channel. And then in the month of November, my live streaming just on LinkedIn Live was almost 1,800 unique views. So what I'm trying to do is really take my game to the next level, be a better content creator, become a better broadcaster when it comes to my technique and ability, and then transform that content. Think about taking one live stream, being able to put that out as a podcast, put that out as a blog, put that out as a put that out as a newsletter, and take that content also too and microdose it to people, where maybe the people I'm interviewing for build out, there's certain topics that I could kind of group together in a playlist and be able to provide some knowledge to someone who might be seeking something related to business planning or process improvement, or if it comes to mindfulness and wellness. That's a great opportunity. But the platform with the live streaming, it's given me the opportunity to do special things, such as a live stream I did regarding mental health, safety in the trades, where I actually had someone write to me after that they were in a bad place. They worked in the trades, and because of my broadcast, they actually are seeking help and they're in counseling right now. So that makes me feel so great when people reach out to me and say, I really appreciate what you do. Keep doing it. Don't give up. And here's some ideas to make yourself better.
Thanks,
Wow.
Jim. That's awesome. I mean, congrats on that. Okay, Jim
Thank
went into almost going into 2022. So let's go ahead and we'll segue. It was a great way to segue into 2022. What's your word of the year? What's the reason behind it? What do you hope happens with that word?
I'll start.
Okay.
It came up again when we recorded our end of year episode, and I found it actually helpful to ask other people, because it's so easy to get inside your own head when you're thinking of these words. So I put it out to them, and they were like, I didn't know I had an assignment. I'm like, no, it's not an assignment. It's just, you know me. What should it be? And we went around it, and really it came down to one word, which is almost the essence of our generation, which is why we do the show in the first place, which is this notion of resilience. And if anything we've learned, my word for the previous year was connection, because that's what we were all doing this way. And then it's sort of, built on that. But the notion of you can always survive it. And resilience is the way that as Gen Xers, I find we're the MacGyver generation. So it's like, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. Let's put some chewing gum and a rubber band, and we'll be fine. And
I got a paper clip here. Oh, here we go.
So resilience is a word that I've seen repeated a lot through people of my generation, and we have a Facebook group, and I've asked this question too, and that's in line with it. So I'm taking it and running with it. So I'm going to call it resilience and see if I have to change the meaning of the word in 3 months or not, because I might.
Resilience covers so much, though. That's one of the topics that I speak on. It's one of my keynotes is Bounce Up, and it's about resilience. So, and that word can encompass your personal life, your professional life. It can encompass your business, talking with clients. There's so many ways that you can take that word and have that mean something for you. So it's an awesome word.
Thank you. I think as we're choosing them too, you've talked about sort of living by a word. There's a word that I use as well for the planning of it, which is aspirational, because you don't want to sort of pick a word and then fail, because then that's back to resolutions and damn the Babylonians. But so I'm aspiring to resilience. If for some reason something takes me down from it, then we do it again the next day. And then that in itself becomes a little meta, because it's all about resilience. So I'm hoping I'm in a good shape for 2022.
Yes. And what happens with anytime we have stress or we have a setback, it helps us grow and become stronger and more resilient.
Hope so.
And to that point, and as you were saying, it is meta to say, okay, so then if I feel like I'm not being resilient, then I need to be resilient about that. But keep in mind too that word doesn't just represent what you do, but what you can inspire in others. So
Good
much
point.
of what you do, even just talking about this right now, you've already started it. We're not, you know what I mean? You started inspiring others to be resilient by talking about this. So it's sometimes our word of the year can also be a reflective point. If we feel like we're not quite reaching it, we can say, well, where is it playing out in my life?
That's a great point. I love that.
It
That's a great point.
It is. So Lisa, what's your word of the year for 2022?
It's such a short little word this time. Sometimes I get, really interesting, but this time it's really short and sweet and simple. And the word is fit.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And I wonder sometimes, so I'm asking myself the question, what do I want more of in my life? It's sort of that balance that you talked about, right, MJ, where
Yes.
you're like saying, okay, what's something I kind of want to bring out that maybe has taken a back seat, because that is the ebb and flow of life.
Yes.
And so to the point about being healthy and taking care of myself, there's that aspect. I think it's hysterical that having a fit, or a fit of laughter, that's totally me, because I'm a goofball. If you spend any time on Instagram with me and watch my reels, you're going to be like, she's a little wacky. And that's okay, because it's stress management, right? It's on brand. But
Yes.
also it's about being selective, right? Because I've had wonderful opportunities, but not all of them are for me. And I need to make sure that I'm paying very close attention to my mission and my vision and my purpose, and making sure when I make my choices that I'm being super selective, especially in business, but for my family as well. When you ask that question, is this a good fit?
Love that.
Right?
Love that.
That's what I
Yes.
want 2022 to be for me, so that it's like it's getting me to that next level. And this is a great example, a wonderful serendipitous example of having this conversation. I'm like, this is such a good fit. And I'm so excited to keep in touch with you all and to support
Definitely.
each other. But it's that kind of thing. Lots of people can offer you opportunities, but they're not all for you. And I want to be very selective going forward.
And opportunities can take you off track. They
True.
can take you off track from your mission or your vision. So, right, if it's a good fit. So that's great. I once heard make your yes and your no. So, and that your word fit. Yes.
I love the double entendre nature of it too, because fit
Thank
can
you.
mean so many different things.
Yes.
Yes.
And that allows you to sort of, again, maybe not meta, but it's allowing you to, well, it means this today and it means this tomorrow.
Right. And over the course of the year, it's like, okay, I focused on the fit side of becoming more healthy, but am I still doing the job I need to do in terms of the choices I'm making?
Right.
And along those lines of the yes and yes and no, when you say yes to something, you say no to many other things. You have to be very clear about
Yes.
which is
Love that.
which, and if you're okay with it. So I love that.
And that feeds into my word of the year perfectly, because my word for 2022 is strategic. So when I say yes to something, is it strategic? Yes, that's going to get me to where I want to be, or do I need to make it a strategic? No. So making, is it a strategic fit? So going back to, because there are times where, oh my goodness, I can get so off track because something sounds like fun. And if it sounds like fun, I'm all in, but it's not always good for me, health-wise or business-wise, professionally. So really looking and asking, is this a strategic decision? Is this system I put in, is it strategic to get me to where I want to be? So strategic is my word for this year.
Love it.
Good one. Yeah.
So definitely a good one. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. So I'm going to ask, does anybody have like one little nugget they want to say or share before I get into asking for contact information?
Actually, yes, because I've been going through this list. So I shared this on our last show, and I didn't get too many giggles. So I was feeling okay about this list. But there's one thing that stands out in all of these, because some of them are general. Joy was one of them. Happy was one of them. Gratitude. But the one for 2016 really stands out, and I think maybe it's usable any year. It's enough. And it's a word we don't think about, because that actually again was recommended by a friend. So maybe it's best I should ask other people rather than come up with it myself, because a friend from a therapy group recommended it because she heard me say things that felt like I wasn't being enough. And that she set me a goal for that year, which is 2016, to know that I'm enough in whatever capacity that meant. And every once in a while, to be honest, she'd check on me about that. And she would say, you remember the word? Okay, cool. What you're saying right now is not meaning you're enough. So she didn't push me to do it, but she's like, you should think about it. And then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that's the word I made. So I think that when you're picking those words, it is important to do it yourself sometimes, but it's also important to hear what other people think, because those are going to unlock words and aspirations and things that you may not have heard before or thought of before, and they're probably more valuable to you than not. That's my
Yeah.
thought.
I think
Thank
the word
you.
the word enough can cover positive things and also too things that might be roadblocking you or
Yeah.
holding you back
Yes.
too. So it's definitely a double meaning on that. The one word that I hopefully will be able to dovetail into the near future is going to be engagement. Engaging not only with my professional contacts in the industry I work in, but related to my viewers. I need to be more engaged and working closer with my viewers and supporters of my content and my broadcast.
Cool.
Good one, Jim. Lisa, a last nugget?
I love that you mentioned enough, because I see this so much in the clutter that people hold on to, the whole life clutter, which is
Yes.
something I deal with quite a bit, that we're holding on or gravitating toward things or those bright, shiny objects because we're not enough. So that's beautiful, Eve. I would say this, just think simply, what do you want more of in your life? Or you can go conversely, what do you want less of? But when you have that word, display it, do something cool and creative with it, use it as a form or a part of your passwords that you type in all the time. Make something like art wise so that you can see it wherever you go, and you're continually reminded, so it becomes top of mind. And to your point about enoughness, one of my favorite quotes from Sophia Bush is that you're allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. So embrace all of that. Celebrate
love
where you
that.
are right now, celebrate where you're going.
That's great. I'm going to flip back to Eve's comment too about the word someone noticed a word kept coming up.
Yeah.
And strategic, I had found I had been using the word through November and December. And I meet with a woman who is my accountability partner. We've been doing this since 2016. And actually, our next show will be about accountability. And we're going back and forth on it. And she said, "What's your word of the year?" And I said, "Strategic." And she said, "You have said that word so much over the past month. The word shows up at times in our thoughts or conversations."
It's because that's what you're searching for. That's what you want more of. And so, yeah, isn't
Love
that a
it.
great, yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah.
It is. So let's go. Lisa, if you'll share with us, how can our viewers get a hold of you?
You can always go to my website, positivelyproductive.com. But if you are a podcast listener, I would be delighted if you'd come listen to the Positively Living podcast. And I did mention Instagram. I do have a lot of fun over there. I'm at positively_Lisa, and I'd love it if you come play with me there.
Eve, how about you?
Of course, I'm a website designer, so I have websites. My personal one for my design business is evesimoncreative.com, so you can get me there. You can also check out our show, which is called Gen X Stories, and the URL is genxstories.com. You can get all of our socials there. You could see our swag. You can see all the episodes. You can subscribe. You can do everything there. And if people are 80s fans, we do have an 80s focused Instagram. As you said, it's fun. And it's at genxstories.com. But, tons of ways to get in touch with me. I can't wait to hear from people.
Thank you. And Jim?
Well, everyone, you can go to buildoutproductions.com and check out not only my broadcast information, but also other broadcasters that are part of the Fellowship of Broadcasters. MJ Calloway with Bounce Up is on the site information as well. And you can join my live stream every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time on multiple platforms. And I look forward to having you as a viewer, and hopefully even Lisa, I'll have you on as guest here shortly in 2022.
I'd love that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Fun.
Spreading that joy, which is great.
Engagement.
Yes,
Okay.
there you go. You're already implementing that word. All right, viewers, be sure to connect every Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time here for the Bounce Up broadcast, where we are bringing you information, strategies, and tips to help you get more results and so that you can have a bounce up life. Now, remember to make it a bounce up day.